Welcome back to Inside Asia. I am now discussing about majority and minority with Assistant Professor Dr. Yukti Mukdavijit from the Faculty of Sociology and Anthropology at Thammasat University. Please come back to our topic today. I think you mentioned about two things, the power and the number. So are there any problems between this kind of conflicts? Because ASEAN is very diverse in terms of ethnicity, because you mentioned about this.
Yes, I think, okay, we discussed about the numbers of populations and the powers, but also I like to add into it, it's about the indigenous peoples. You asked me about how many kinds, if we can identify who are the minorities, and then how many kinds of minorities we have in ASEAN. I like to talk about different groups of people. One is the people who are living in their own lands, in their own areas, and became minoritized, make the state's power made them to become minorities. Those are the people who we know very well. Like, for example, in Thailand, we're talking about the Chinese or the Muslims in their own countries, and then they became minoritized, they became minorities eventually. But we also have lots of people who living in their own areas, and they are indigenous in the areas, but then they became minoritized, or make themselves to be minorities under the state power, because they are smaller in terms of populations. That is it's the fact of numbers of the peoples. It really matters in that ways. We are talking about, for example, the smaller group of people who live in different parts of countries in southern, for example, in southern Vietnam, the Baru, the Chalais, many of them. Or in Thailand, we can mention about the Khmers who live in the borders between Thailand and Cambodia. Or
is Arakan people included for this type in Burma?
I doubt it, because the other group of people that I am going to talk about is people who migrate into the areas, who became the population of the countries after a period of time that, for example, even the Hmong or the Yaos who migrate from China to Vietnam to Thailand, or and Laos, or the Lus who migrate from China to Thailand, they are minorities in the sense that they migrate into the areas. But also I would include the people who they migrate into the into ASEAN countries just recently, like the Burmese who live in Thailand nowadays. Many of them who became immigrant workers in Thailand, or Laotians or Vietnamese who migrate to Thailand to live and work in Thailand. Those are another kinds of minorities. So then we are encountering so many groups of peoples, and then we need to handle different cases, different groups of people differently. This is my suggestions.
So that means there are two groups. One is the indigenous people who live before the state come in and control them. Another one is the smaller group who migrate from other regions or other countries.
But those who are immigrants from the other countries, they can be huge numbers in terms of populations.
Could you give us examples?
For example, the Chinese,
Chinese
who live in Bangkok, and if you look at the statistics of those who live in Bangkok in 19th centuries, the number of Chinese people who live in Bangkok are over the number of Thai populations or other populations who live in Bangkok. So then if we talk about those group of people, they would be majorities in terms of populations.
And in your opinion, what is the factor that make them, lead to the conflict between the majority or minority?
Well, one factor belongs to, I think, the state powers, the state policies. and also it has to do with the conflict that persists since the end of World War II. I'm talking about the emergence of new countries after World War II, and then how the majority of those countries deals with the minorities in the countries, and the deals could be different from place to place. I take 3 countries, like for example Thailand. Thailand deals with majorities problems differently because of the fact that a lot of people who live in Thailand are Thai populations, but
someone might say they are Chinese.
Yes, but still it takes a long time to make everyone become Thais. But Thailand has a little more advantage in comparison to other countries in the fact that Thailand became monopolized or homogenized itself for longer time in comparison to other countries, which just occurs after World War II. I'm talking about for example, the letters that King Rama V sends to the chiefs or the prince in the countries in the small states near Laos to say that we are tied together, so then you don't need to be part of Indochina, so please be with us because we are tied together. But previously, those people who they were called Laos or they were called the others, assuming that they are not Thai before. But after that, Siams wants them to be part of Thailand. So then that is the way that we deal with the minority problems in Thailand. But in other countries, they deal with it differently. So for example, in Vietnam, right? How can you imagine that Ho Chi Minh would talk with the Thai people who live in mountainous areas that we are Vietnamese together? That is not true.
Not, yes.
Of course not. And they speak different languages. It's very obvious that they cannot identify with the same kind of group of people. So then they come up with something else. So they say, okay, we have same enemies. We have to fight with the same enemies, and we share enemies. That is the things that we share. So then we have to fight together. And after that, we will live together. And then I, as the Vietnamese, will respect you as the minorities. So then they give some kind of rights to protect themselves, to keep their own language or their own cultures and their own lands. So that kind of deals makes it different in comparison to Thailand. And then, so then what is happening now is that in Vietnam, in terms of the local politics, the people who live in the local area will elect their own representative and also their own governor to govern themselves. The governor of the province governors would be elected by the local people themselves. So it could be that if the local people, if the majority of the local people are the monks, so then they can elect the monks to be the chief of the province, which would not happen in Thailand at all. Right? So then that's the way that different countries in Southeast Asia deal with minority issues.
Okay, so I think after the break, we will come back and discuss again exclusively about Thailand and the situation in Burma. Stay tuned.